Welcome to Shamanism 117. We're talking about Tantra. Tantra literally means something like loom, warp, or weave. The root of the verb tan means to extend, to spread out, to spin out, to weave, to display, to put forth and compose. In Sanskrit, the word Tantra means woven together. So people who practiced Buddhist and Hindu meditation can also practice tantric sex as a way of weaving the physical together with the spiritual. The term Tantra in the Indian traditions also means any systematic, broadly applicable text, theory, system, method, instrument, technique, or practice. What you're looking at right now is the Kali Yantra. This is a meditation aid. So if you look at the middle triangle and focus your eyes on it, the other triangles should start to move in a pattern around the screen. A yantra is a word that means instrument, apparatus, or contrivance. It comes from the root word yam, that means to support or sustain. And yantras are a big part of tantric practice. So I want to share a couple of quotes about Tantra. The first is from Sadhguru. Tantra means a technique or knowledge to make a certain technology of being able to unmake and make life again. Osho says Tantra is the science of transforming ordinary lovers into soulmates. Frederick Lenz says, in Tantra, samsara is viewed as the same thing as nirvana. Eating a hamburger is meditation. From Chogyam Trungpa, Tantra is the hot blood of spiritual practice. It smashes the taboo against unreasonable happiness. A thunderbolt path, swift, joyful, and fierce. There is no authentic Tantra without profound commitment, discipline, courage, and a sense of wild, foolhardy, fearless abandon. And from Yogarchini Matiye, in Tantra, we spiritualize sexuality, not sexualize spirituality. Tantra goes back a long time. Some claim it's about 5,000 years old, but the first writings came out about 2000 BCE, and then about the 300 to 400 AD, these two strains of Tantra that they call Hindu and Tibetan Tantrism emerged. Tantra was widely practiced in India between the 11th and 12th centuries. As opposed to classical yoga teachings, Tantric teachings refute the idea that moksha, liberation, can only be attained through rigorous asceticism and by renouncing spiritual pleasures. Tantrics believe that most of the human suffering comes from our mistaken conception of separation, and advocate instead that we celebrate our senses and the mundane life. In modern Tantra, Tantra is divided into two main branches. People who use their own sexual energy, mostly internally, are defined as the right hand or white Tantra. This path includes traditional Hindu practices like asceticism and meditation. On the other path, the left hand or red Tantra, we engage in direct sexual contact between love partners. We use alcohol and other intoxicants. All of the above clash with traditional Hinduist principles, and so the left-handed path from the Tao tradition survived many centuries almost unmodified. And while both these paths, both hands, can lead to moksha, liberation, and enlightenment, the left-hand path is faster but more dangerous. So let's talk about this. So a few basic principles of Tantra. Divine union. And divine union recognizes the interplay of masculine and feminine energies within each individual. So we strive to integrate these polarities and balance them within us so that we can have both the active and receptive aspects of our being. And Tantra recognizes these Shiva and Shakti, these masculine, feminine principles. And it emphasizes the integration and harmonization of these polarities within ourselves and within all aspects of life, aiming for unity and wholeness. And so Tantra sees sexuality as something sacred. Tantra acknowledges the potential for spiritual growth and transcendence through the integration of our sexuality and our spirituality. Tantra recognizes the power of sexual energy as a sacred force that can be harnessed and elevated to higher states of consciousness. Tantra is also really focused on energy cultivation to understand and harness the subtle energies within and around us. We do this through a lot of different methods like breathwork, meditation, visualization, mantras. We also focus on cultivating compassion and love. Tantra teaches that love and compassion are essential aspects of our spiritual evolution. To live as a tantrika involves cultivating deep compassion for yourself and for others, the world at large, and for ourselves, and recognize the interconnectedness of all beings. Tantra also focuses on the sacredness of our body and our sensory experiences. To be a tantrika involves cultivating a deep connection with your body, honoring your body's wisdom, and embracing your sensuality as a path to spiritual awakening. Kundalini awakening is also a tantric principle. Kundalini is the dormant spiritual energy that resides at the base of our spine. Tantra seeks to awaken and raise this powerful energy through specific practices and aims for the Kundalini to ascend through our energy centers, our chakras. Tantra is also focused on awareness and presence. Tantric practice encourages the cultivation of present moment awareness and expanded consciousness as a means to deepen our spiritual experience. Living as a tantrika involves being fully present in each moment, cultivating mindfulness and developing a heightened sense of awareness in all aspects of life to develop a direct and profound connection with the divine within and all around us. Tantra is also focused on transcendence and transformation. Tantra views challenges and limitations as opportunities for growth and transformation. To live as a tantrika involves embracing the process of self-transcendence, to let go of conditioned patterns and to open up to expanded states of consciousness. And we work with rituals and ceremonies in Tantra. We incorporate various rituals, various ceremonies and sacred practices to create a deeper connection. These can include things like mantras, yantras, mudras, hand movements, meditation, visualization, breathwork, and other rituals to honor the divine within and around you and to create sacred space. Most importantly to remember is this idea of non-dual, this integration of polarities. Tantra encourages the transcending of dualistic thinking and the realization of non-duality. Tantra recognizes that all phenomena, including the spiritual and material realms, are interconnected and ultimately expressions of the divine. So as we speak of Tantra, I would actually like to compare it to yoga. Yoga has become a lot more popular in the world today, and there's so much overlap, and I'm going to paint these kind of black and white contrasts, but they're not necessarily opposing at all. I personally consider myself a tantric yogini because I've discovered through my own journey that a lot of my foundational beliefs align more with tantric philosophy, while I still absolutely love my yoga practice. It seems like yoga is a lot more palatable for traditionalists and people with religious backgrounds. And when I put Tantra and yoga next to each other like this, it's my impression that yoga is a lot more masculine and Tantra is more feminine. Let me see if you agree. So let's start with yoga. The goal of yoga is samadhi, or spiritual enlightenment, or union with the transcendence. Yoga emphasizes practices like asanas and postures and breath control to achieve this goal. Tantra, on the other hand, emphasizes the expansion of consciousness and the embodiment of divinity in all aspects of life, including the sensual and the mundane. It seeks to attain spiritual realization by embracing and integrating all experiences rather than renouncing them. Yoga generally follows a path of renunciation and asceticism. It advocates that we should withdraw from worldly attachments and any desires to reach spiritual liberation. Tantra, on the other hand, embraces the world and advocates for having experiences as a means to spiritual evolution. Tantra recognizes the potential for spiritual growth in everyday life, including the realms of relationships, sensuality, and creativity. So we can really say yoga guides you to transcend the world, while Tantra brings you into deeper connection with it. When we look at the body in yoga, the body is seen as a vehicle for spiritual realization, and a lot of the yoga practices focus on purifying and aligning the physical and energetic systems. In Tantra, the body is seen as a sacred vessel of divine energy and recognizes the importance of working with and harnessing the body's subtle energies for spiritual transformation. But Tantra does not have this emphasis on cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. Rather, we're allowed to live and explore and enjoy through the body. So when we talk about these different methods between yoga and Tantra, yoga is much more systematic and structured in its approach. They have these set out paths in yoga, like Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga. It emphasizes discipline, concentration, and purifying the mind. Tantra is a lot more spontaneous. It's intuitive. Tantra encourages our direct experience and to practice rituals and engage in things that activate and awaken our dormant energies. Tantra has a lot more rituals and ceremony than yoga. In yoga, I couldn't really think, each individual yoga lineage will have their own kind of rituals, but in the yoga kind of ancient text, there's not so much. There's more sort of the chanting and following the guru, whereas Tantra, each one of us is the guru, and so we hold our own space. There are sort of two words that I would like you to be aware of when it comes to Tantra. The first is boga. Boga is to really engage with the pleasure of life, to enjoy life, to pursue and indulge in sensual pleasures, to have material possessions and external experiences. Vedanta says that boga is transient and ultimately unsatisfying, but Tantra recognizes it as a fully valid path. And so yajna is offering. In yajna, we understand the importance of sacrifice, selfless service, and surrender, to give our actions, thoughts, and intentions for a higher purpose. It talks about dedication and devotion. Yajna is a sort of spiritual means of purification and harmonious alignment with the divine or universal consciousness. Yajna can take various forms, like acts of service, mental offerings of love and compassion, practicing self-discipline and self-control. It's a way of transcending personal desires. Both boga and yajna are part of Tantra. Boga is the enjoyment and the fulfillment of worldly experiences, and yajna encourages us to go beyond these self-centered desires and engage in selfless service. Balancing both, I believe, is the key to a more holistic and spiritually fulfilling life. The yin and the yang. So in Tantra, really, there is no good or bad. And please remember, Tantra is as old as shamanism. Tantra predates the masculine influence over spirituality. In Tantra, there is a philosophical perspective that transcends our conventional notions of good and bad or right or wrong. Tantra recognizes that these are subjective judgments influenced by cultural, societal, and personal conditioning. Instead, Tantra encourages us to move beyond this dualistic thinking and embrace a non-judgmental life. From a tantric perspective, all aspects of existence are seen as interconnected and part of the divine play of consciousness. Tantra invites you to explore and integrate the full spectrum of human experience, including what could be considered positive or negative, light or dark, pleasurable or painful. Tantra tells you that these experiences can offer opportunities for growth, transformation, and self-realization. Tantra is about learning to live with what is, the intense, frightening, and blissful weaving of life, every moment a ritual, an opportunity to escape, or an opportunity or a chance to fall more in love. Tantra teaches us that even questioning the practice of Tantra is part of the whole experience of life, and therefore the divine. In essence, it's a profound awareness of the activity of being, where our journey is our destination. Let's talk a little bit about tantric goddesses and modern tantrikas. These are some of, again, older than or as old as shamanism, and to keep these goddesses alive in a world that has become patriarchal, where most of the biggest world religions are centered around a male god. I want to remind you and help you remember, tantric goddesses play a really important role in tantric philosophy and practice. They represent the divine feminine energy and embody various aspects of her power, wisdom, creativity, and transformation. The goddesses are revered as the embodiments of Shakti. Shakti, the primordial cosmic energy that permeates the universe. Tantric practitioners will perform rituals, meditations, visualizations, and ceremonies to connect with and invoke the energies of the tantric goddesses. Each goddess has her unique qualities and symbolism, and can help in different aspects of our life and growth. Some well-known goddesses are Kali, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Tara, and Tripura Sundari. Now, a lot of these goddesses have been pushed to the side, like I said. But to understand the importance of the fierce and the wild, and that women are not just here to be pretty objects, but to remember, tantrikas were many, and just like we talked about witches and the different words to describe women who are wild, there are some nice words that you might love as much as I do from the Tantrika tradition. So a Dakini is a woman who flies. She's a woman who travels the sky. She's a woman who can be in different places. She's a woman who is very connected to her dreams. A Vidyaharim is a woman of wisdom. A Vira is a warrior woman or a heroine. And a Yogini is a keeper of secrets. Now, tantrikas use different methods for heightening, channeling, and offering bliss. Some of them were dance and songs, and a wild variety of sexual practices. The tantrikas saw the body not as a bondage, but as the gateway to power, freedom, ecstasy, and bliss. It is through the feminine form that we can get to know the goddess. So the tantrikas dove deep into oceans of passion to harvest the pearls of enlightenment. And let's just say that the tantrikas' metaphors on the lotus and the scepter went far beyond the metaphor of traditional male Buddhism. Tantric women were seen as a source of spiritual power. They were the goddess embodied. Because their kundalini was much easier to awaken, they didn't need males to advance in Tantra. But the male tantrics were advised to seek out the yoginis and to court them for erotic favors, because the males needed the women to awaken their kundalini. Now, the tantrikas were not just helping the males awaken their kundalini. The tantrikas were divine spiritual aspirants in their own right. The presence of a female Buddha, like the beautiful, compassionate, and untamed Vajrayogini in tantric iconography and literature, demonstrate that women could attain Buddhahood in their present lifetime, in their female bodies. Vajrayogini's glowing red body is ablaze with the heart of the yogic fire. Encircled with the flames of wisdom, her dancing, leaping, and soaring poses proclaim that she's alive and joyously free. Her flowing hair and swaying bone ornaments ripple on the currents of her swirling energy field. She never parts from her brimming skull cup, ever slaking her thirst for primordial ecstasy, which is not ordinary pleasure but innate bliss, that pulses at the core of every being and is the birthright of all living beings. Her chalice is made from a human skull, for nothing deters her ability to taste and enjoy life, even when life's feast is served in something that looks like death. Dancing Vajrayogini holds a skull bowl in her left hand and a crescent-shaped knife in her right. She wears ankle bells and a garland of skulls. The dancing goddess Vajrayogini is crowned with a top knot and has the third eye of omniscience. She pervades the universe. An immense and subtle goddess, a stainless goddess holding a skull bowl of emptiness whose essence is emptiness, goddess revealing the path to liberation. Homage to you, homage to the glorious Vajrayogini, embodiment of mantra, Buddha Queen, granter of all fruits of yogic practice, the very image of spontaneously arising bliss, granter of knowledge and wisdom. I want to tell you quickly about Lakshminakara. She's the founding mother of Buddhism. She believed that yoginis are the embodiments of the goddess. No external constraints can bind her. She can eat and do whatever she likes and go wherever she chooses. Now, please remember as well how far out and weird, in the meaning of taking control of your own destiny, this type of spiritual belief, this type of lifestyle could have been back in the day. But back then, there were many independent tantric women. Some were queens and princesses, some were wine sellers and coconut vendors, and others prostitutes and dancers. They often had hundreds, sometimes thousands of disciples, and some were preferable to the gurus of men. Many were wandering teachers, settling down in places where disciples could seek them out. But they also gathered in tantric feasts and religious rites to read their writing and dialogue with others, to improvise their songs and dance. And sometimes they had sex. Sexual union was seen as the vehicle for spiritual transformation. So ritual sex and ecstatic practices wasn't just for hedonism, but to maintain a clear realization of emptiness. The term that the tantrics use for the insubstantial and illusory nature of all phenomena in the midst of passion. So Lakshminakara was a big deal. She's one of the first siddhas. So she's also called Mahasiddha. Siddha is a practitioner of Tantra who has achieved the goal of tantric meditation, which is siddhi. Maha means great or magnificent. Mahasiddhas are the greatest and most accomplished on the tantric path. So let me tell you the story of Mahasiddha Lakshminakara. It's a journey often required of those who seek ultimate truth. She was born into a royal family and was brought up in luxurious surroundings. She showed a grasp and understanding of tantric concepts even at a young age. All was idyllic until she was betrothed to the king of Lanka, or Ceylon as we know it today, as part of a deeper political alliance. Lakshminakara traveled to Ceylon with a large dowry. Due to a delayed departure, the wedding party arrived only some days after it was expected. The court astrologers present at the city gate informed them that it was an inauspicious day and the bride and her retinue must wait until the following day before entering the city. Lakshmanikara got annoyed and she started to feel frustrated. Suddenly she observed in the distance a great clamor, and presently a hunting came into view. At the head rode a stern-faced man in royal clothes soiled by a bloody carcass, the trophy of the game which he had carelessly thrown across his shoulders. This was her future husband, the king of Lanka. The princess despaired when she witnessed this inhuman treatment of animals. Because she was the thoughtful Buddhist, she reached a new resolve in that moment. She had all the chests and trunks carrying her dowry open on the spot and began to distribute them amongst the crowd that had gathered there. Everything was given away, even the jewelry. The next day, when she was finally invited into the palace, she locked herself in a chamber and refused to see anyone. When somebody came to knock on the door, she would throw things at them. The princess then unbound her hair, tore off her clothes, and rubbed ashes on her body. She talked incoherently in a prattle and seemed completely insane. That's why one of her nicknames is the Mad Princess. Her erratic behavior led to the wedding being cancelled, which was exactly what she was hoping. One night, she crept out of the palace and fled to a cremation ground and renounced the world to become a yogini, living by scavenging the food thrown out for dogs. And she lived like that for 7 years until she attained Siddhi. One of the sweepers of the royal latrines served her faithfully during these 7 years. When she gained realization, he was the first person she initiated. Lakshmanikara's story describes, and in a very dramatic way, the lengths that a mystic must sometimes go to sever the attachments and cords that prevent us from reaching our highest egoless state. When Lakshmanikara finally came out of seclusion, she attracted a large circle of disciples, some of who became quite famous. Eventually, her former fiancé converted to Buddhism as well and asked her to be his guru, but she chose to assign him to the low-caste sweeper that was her first disciple. I also want to tell you about Dombi Yogini, who was the consort or the lover of King Dombia. Together they transformed themselves into Buddhas through their sacred union. Communion between Buddhas generate waves of harmony and nectar that satisfies the spiritual hunger in the hearts of living beings everywhere, she wrote in a song. Isn't that beautiful? So to remind you that to be wild is natural and sexuality is divine. To remind us that there was a different world, one where our sexuality and our sex was not seen as dangerous or something to be controlled, but something divine. A world where women were valued not just for what we look like, but for the power that we have. I want to compare this to the Catholic Church, which has said it's prepared to accept aliens as space brothers, but says that women priests are an abomination. I'm not saying that we should all run around and have sex with everybody who wants to have sex with us. I'm not saying that we should fuck around and find out. I'm just saying that there is a way of acknowledging the divine power within ourselves, free from the need to seek relationships with men in order to gain self-esteem or approval or to survive. In Tantra, it is a woman's honored choice when and if to confer her blessings, energy and power on a man. I think this is really important. Since the history of these yoginis is so easily accessible in tantric literature, the fact that the scholars don't mention them cannot be attributed to anything but choice. Are these old yoginis, these old shamans, lewd and depraved? Is that why we keep ignoring them when we learn about the history? Maybe it's because they defy our expectations of gender relations in the Western view. Could it be that in our post-feminist age, the taboo about these yoginis is the idea that women are at the sexual helm, women are the choice makers? Whatever the answer, I think it can be safe to say that these yoginis were free from the control of the male gaze and the fear of retributive sexual violence, and glorified in a joyful embodiment that is very foreign to us as modern women today. So Tantra, the ultimate self-realization tool to expand consciousness and experience unity and liberation. Everything has a divine nature, and so do we. Every aspect of our lives, including our senses, must be celebrated because it's part of this divine vision. Nothing should be condemned because it's all part of this design, and it should be exactly the way it is. Working, eating, and lovemaking can be contemplated to understand the undifferentiated nature of existence. They can all be meditation. In this sense, Tantra breaks that division of spiritual and mundane that most modern versions of spirituality and religion have created. Sexuality and sensuality are not also the same. You are free to live your life, to eat what you want, to go where you choose, and to open your door to those you want to invite in. Thank you for your time and attention.